be here to talk to you guys about the college essay. I know it's a really scary process, and so she does a really wonderful job of making it not so scary, and also giving you an opportunity to start brainstorming for your own personal essay. There is an opportunity at the end for you to start the brainstorming process, and then also, historically it has been that way, yes, to start the brainstorming process at the end, and then to share and ask questions. So it will be interactive towards the end. If you do have questions throughout, it's okay to raise your hand, and she'd be happy to help you. So here's Ms. Lennox. Thanks.
All right, good morning, everyone. It's nice to see you all today. I'm really happy to be here. I think this is the third or fourth time I've been to Monticello to talk about the essay. It's actually one of my personal favorite topics when we think about the college application. So just by show of hands, how many of you guys are seniors? Yeah, okay, keep them up, keep them up. How many of you guys have started working on your college essay? Fantastic, excellent job. All right, great. All right, well, we're going to be talking about it in great detail today. Hopefully, if you're nervous about it, hopefully we'll ease some of those anxieties, help you focus a little bit more on your essay. I've been working in college admissions for just over 20 years now. I've worked at a lot of different institutions, not just UVA, at Holyoke College, Harvard, Princeton, and Duke are the places that I worked prior to coming to UVA. So needless to say, I've read a lot of college essays. So my hope is to help you sift through some of the information that you've probably received or heard or seen in books or magazines or blogs or from fellow students about what is important in the college admissions process when you write your essay, and help you understand how we view it as a part of the application, and help you hopefully, again, focus or organize your essay. So first, how is the essay important? That's where we need to begin. In what ways is the essay important as a part of the college admission process? What do you think? Yeah. Helps you stand out? Exactly. Anything else? Yeah.
It creates a person rather than a bundle of statistics.
Right. That's a good way of putting it. It makes you more of a three-dimensional being to us. It really kind of adds a great deal to just, your transcript and to what other people say about you. This is your opportunity to talk to us, right? So do you think an essay can affect your admissions decision? Can it change you from a deny to an admit? What do you think? Yes, it can in certain circumstances, okay? So when we look at the college essay, it is one piece of the puzzle for us, okay? I have a former colleague from when I was at Harvard who was an older guy, would say things very directly. And his way of talking about the college essay was to say that it could heal the sick, but it couldn't raise the dead. So what he was basically saying there is, if you're not in the ballpark academically, if the grades that we see on the transcript are just not realistic for our institution, the essay's not going to make a difference for those students. But when we're talking about a selective admissions process, where when we're looking at our applicant pool, we have more qualified students applying than we can accept, there's very few students who actually fall in that category. There's very few students who I would say would be kind of a clear deny, where none of the other factors matter because the grades just really aren't there. So for students who are in the ballpark, and for us that's really the majority of our applicant pool, every other piece of the puzzle begins to carry more weight, okay? Every other piece. Because, we're looking at all of these students and saying, well, they're all smart. They can all come here. They can do the work. So as an institution, we have to sit down, and as an admissions committee, we have to sit down and say, okay, well, what do we value? What else do we want? You know, we have smart students, so what else are we looking for in these applications? So that's when, you know, your teacher recommendations play a role, because they give us some contextual information about how, what type of student you are in the classroom, how you interact in the classroom, how you lead or are an intellectual leader in the classroom. Your extracurriculars are going to add into the puzzle there, because all of a sudden we're going to be starting to wonder about what you're going to contribute at our university. So we want to see, what do you contribute to your school or to your community or to your family? And your essay, guys, is the chance to tell us about you, okay? It's the one time when I'm reading a college application, when I sit back in my chair, and I let you talk to me directly, okay? So you want to use that time wisely. You want to write an essay that really communicates who you are. Now, I've worked in admissions for a long time, and I can tell you, if I had a nickel for every question I had about average SAT score or GPA, I would be a very, very rich woman. But I could count on one hand, in 20 years, the number of times a student has come to me and said, what type of person are you looking for your institution? But guys, that's an actually very important question. When you're talking about selective admissions, personal qualities are going to play a role. If I'm going to have to sit in front of a committee with applications and fight for students, okay, and say, okay, well, all of these students are smart, this is why I want to admit this student. You want me to like you, all right? You want me to get to know you as a person, because that's going to play a role. And that is the place of the essay in the process. At schools like UVA, we don't offer an interview. A lot of schools are able to do that, but we have 31,000 applications, and we can't offer it for everyone, so we don't offer them. Your essay is your personal touch. That's the chance for you to tell us about who you are. Okay, so all of this to say that the essay is a very important part of the process, not just at UVA, but at every place. This is not a UVA-specific talk here, guys. This is really just about writing the essay for wherever you're interested in applying, okay? So, where do we begin? What's the first thing that you have to have in place to write your essay? Anyone? Before you start writing, what's the first thing you have to know? A prompt, a topic, right? Has anyone looked at the Common Application prompts? Yeah? Okay. Now, reading those prompts, do we all agree that you can kind of write about anything within those prompts, right? They're pretty broad. So if you're writing a Common Application essay, you can really take it in a lot of different directions. You can craft kind of any topic to fit into the prompt, okay? So topic is something you have to think about. And I find that this is the first piece, and oftentimes it's a roadblock for students. All of a sudden they look at the 18 years of their life and think about the massive number of things that they could write about, and they get completely overwhelmed, right? So when we think about topic, what do we need to think about? Come on, guys. What's important? Someone. Think, Chris. All right, yes.
Sure. Something that accurately represents the writer.
Yeah, something that's about you. It should be about you. That's the first thing. And you guys, you'd be surprised the number of people who miss that point. All right? I, am interested in your political views. But I don't want your college essay to be a political position piece that you wrote for your AP US History class last year. Okay? That's not going to tell me about you as a person. So the first place to begin is to think about who you are. Because you want your essay to accurately represent who you are. So pull out a piece of paper. All right, guys, once you have your paper out, okay, I want you to make a few columns, okay? You is the first column. Your friends is the second column. Your family is the third column. And your teachers is the last. Okay? You, your friends, your family, your teachers. And under each column, I want you to write 4 adjectives. Okay? 4 words that you would use to describe yourself. 4 words that your friends would use to describe you. 4 words that your family would use to describe you, and 4 words that your teachers would use to describe you. I'm going to give you just a minute to do that. Absolutely. It can be the same words if in fact, there should be some similarity. Unless you have a split personality again. All right, okay, I'm gonna keep on moving here, but I want you to look at those lists and see where the similarities occur, okay? Your essay should reflect some of those descriptors. It should reflect some of those personality traits. If you have funny in every single column, you might want to think about writing a funny essay. If only you think you're funny, you probably want to avoid funny essays. Okay. So look at those personality traits. Your essay should reflect some of them, okay? Especially where you're seeing consistencies and similarities across all of those different columns, okay? So again, you want to keep it real, you want to keep it about you, and you want it to reflect some of your personality traits, okay? So that's the first thing I would say, okay, is to keep it real. Play to your strengths, all right? Your essay should do both of those things. And I brought a few examples here. Now, how many of you guys are interested in STEM fields or, any sort of science or engineering? Okay, we've got a few, definitely. And I always have scientists and mathematicians come up to me and say, I wish the essay weren't such an important part of the process because English is not my thing. I'm a scientist. That's just not where my strengths fall. And I wish there was something more sciencey that would be a part of the application process. Well, this is a student, and I'm actually drawing from Johns Hopkins here. This is an essay that was submitted to Johns Hopkins of a student who was interested in robotics and engineering and that sort of thing. And this is how he started his essay. The air is tainted with unnatural fumes of grease, wood, and burnt electrical tape. Oil slicks stain the floor. Thick wooden shelves sag unnervingly close to buckling under the weight of old house paint and power tools. A workbench lies buried beneath papers, rulers, cans, and metal shards. An uncomfortable growl pours from the water heater. Most people wouldn't describe my grimy garage as pleasant, but I love spending my free time here. It's where I built a 2-foot trebuchet in 6th grade, a 4-foot trebuchet in 7th grade, and plan to build an 8-foot trebuchet this winter. It's where I built a BattleBot and slapped an Arduino microcontroller on top to give it intelligence. Ever since I sat watching jets shake the sky and explosions rock the screen in the movie Iron Man as a stunned 6th grader, I've spent weekends experimenting in my garage, trying to learn everything I can about engineering and robotics. And then he goes on and talks about other interests, but focuses really on his interest in engineering. So here you see someone who is not an English major, not going to be an English major, but he's writing in a way that speaks about his own strengths and passions, even though they don't fall in kind of the literary category. What did you notice about that? Anything that you thought stood out about the way he wrote? Yes. Yeah. Good. Yeah. He started by painting a scene, right? He didn't start by saying, my garage is my favorite place, okay? And the difference between those two things, between the way he started and the way I just started, is the difference between showing and telling. If you say, my garage is my favorite place, and that's where you start your essay, you're just telling me something. But instead, he is showing me by painting a picture of a scene that tells me about it, okay? So keep it real with your topic, okay? That's really important. We do find that a lot of students will write what we call pleaser essays, and they're pretty easy to pick out. A pleaser essay for UVA might start by saying, my favorite historical document is the Declaration of Independence, written by the great Thomas Jefferson, at which point I'm already rolling my eyes, right? My favorite building is the Rotunda, this type of thing. Avoid writing a pleaser essay. I don't want you to think about what I want to hear, okay? And that falls also for that AP US History opinion piece that you wrote. You might have gotten rave reviews about it. You might be particularly proud of it. So you want to show it to me? No. Okay? Get your history teacher to write a letter of recommendation and talk about that paper. But in your essay, I want you to keep it real and be authentic. Make it about you. Okay? So here's another one, another example. This one came to UVA. Does anyone know who Randy Newman is? Some of our adults. He's a singer-songwriter. He's won a lot of awards for his music. He's done, You've Got a Friend in Me. Y'all remember that from Toy Story? He also wrote a song called Short People Got No Reason to Live. And I mention that because it's contextual with this essay to begin with. So this student, who happens to be short, titled his essay, Shortcomings, and starts like this. I don't even like Randy Newman, but nonetheless, there I was, craning my neck left and right and bobbing up and down on my tippy toes to catch a fleeting glimpse of his famous curly head. To my left and right, my more vertically adept friends pointed, elbowed each other in the ribs, and giggled at what I imagined to be a particularly interesting moment on the stage. The key word there is imagined, because the only interesting thing I could see was the abnormal amount of back hair on the obese man blocking my view. In a nutshell, I'm short. There's no way around it, and there sure as hell isn't any way over it. On a good day, I'm 5'3". If I'm asked, I'm 5'4". And if there's a girl I'm trying to impress, then I might even give myself 5'5". But the reality of the matter is that I easily blend in with your average middle school student. So, he moves on, and Randy Newman eventually gets to singing the song. Short people got no business to live. And he says, my eyes immediately jumped to the ground as I assumed everyone in the crowd, as if on cue, was about to turn in my direction, point, and laugh. However, much to my surprise, minutes passed without insults or even laughter. The song ended, but my private pity party raged on. There was no doubt in my mind that at any moment I was to be stoned by a large group of Randy Newman worshiping pietists. My self-loathing was finally interrupted by a tap on my shoulder, which I knew could only mean one thing. The time had come to be humiliated. I looked up, and there, in all of his masculine glory, stood John Smith, my longtime friend and starting defensive lineman on my school's football team. With a scowl, I poised myself for the insults to come. Hey, Tom, he shouted over Mr. Newman's piano solo. Do you want to get on my shoulder so you can see over that fat dude? By this point, I was so completely corrupted by the idea that I had become the private joke of the entire concert that the true intention of Johnny's words made no difference. I balanced my weight on my back foot and prepared to defend my dignity. But just as I lifted my fist and prepared to unleash the blow that would have destroyed a friendship, I noticed an unmistakable sincerity on his face. He had hunched over and was motioning for me to climb onto his back. And in one of the more level-headed decisions of my life, I unclenched my fist and climbed aboard. Sorry. It seems ironic that the time I spent elevated that day was the experience I needed to finally come to terms with my predicament. But each minute Johnny spent struggling to keep me aloft, served as a shining example of exactly how little my height truly mattered. I could always rely on my friends and family for the metaphorical, and in some cases even literal, leg up. I had vanquished the biggest critic of my height, myself. And for the first time in my life, things were truly looking up. So, why do I show you that essay? What do you think about it? It's sincere. It is, very sincere. What else? Did you like it? Yeah? What'd you like about it? He mocks himself. That's true. It's kind of self-deprecating, isn't it? Which, again, sometimes people avoid that in their college essay. They don't want to show their flaws, right? They don't want to show things that might not be considered positive. But here he is, not only, he's talking about his height, but he's also talking about his negative reaction to it, right? But he goes there, and it kind of shows the vulnerability, right? What else is good? What else did you like about it? Yes?
Well, it does what any sort of emotionally profound writing does, which is to show the reader a specific example and then draw a larger conclusion from it.
Right.
And I mean, the way that the student uses that example of John Newman's song and sitting on the quarterback's shoulders, as you were reading that, I was thinking, okay, so what? This is good writing, but what? And then the conclusion is you really did bring it into the metaphor of family and friends, giving him a leg up.
Yeah, right. And he brings it all together in the end. Do you think he's likable? Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I would love to meet him. I read that and I think, gosh, I really hope he comes. Because I'd love to take him for a cup of coffee. He seems like a good guy. I'd like to be his roommate. And again, in a selective admissions process, if I'm looking at two kids and they look pretty equal academically and one writes this essay, that can make a difference, okay? It's also funny, right? He's clearly a funny person. So again, if you are a funny person, don't feel like you have to shy away from that sort of writing. So again, when you're thinking about topic, was this some massive, large topic that he on? Is this like a, international, summer abroad type of essay? No. It's about a Jazz Fest concert where you saw, Randy Newman. Don't feel like it has to be some extraordinary large topic. I really just want to learn about you, okay? I talk sometimes about what I call blue soup essays. And have any of you guys read Bridget Jones' Diary? Might be a little, yeah, some of the older people. So in Bridget Jones' Diary, Bridget Jones, at one point in the story, decides she wants to cook a Martha Stewart level gourmet dinner for her friends. And she, they show the vision in her head of her, serving this beautiful dinner on this beautiful tablecloth. Everything's perfect, and her friends are oohing and eyeing over this great dinner. And she gets all the ingredients and gets home in her tiny little, London kitchen and has no idea what she's doing. And at one point, she burns the Cornish game hens, and she is making a soup, and she needs to tie some herbs together to put in the soup, and she can't find anything to tie it with. So she finds some blue yarn in the house and ties it and throws it in the soup. And what happens? The soup turns blue. Exactly. Everything's burned. She ends up scrambling some eggs for her friends and serving it alongside the blue soup. What I find is that oftentimes when students try to be something they're not, or bite off a topic that's too big, they serve me blue soup. Okay? They're giving me something that doesn't illustrate them at all and doesn't come close to kind of getting to the point that they wanted to get to. So don't go down that road, guys. Okay? You want to be real. It doesn't need to be a big topic. Write something that tells me about you. My favorite essay that I read last year was about building sandcastles. This girl wrote about going to the beach over the summer, and she was sitting on the beach and decided to build a sandcastle. And her little brother tried to help her. And she kind of freaked out because she was trying to build this perfect sandcastle. The little brother came over and he was messing it up. So she talked to her parents, and they redirected the younger brother, and he built kind of one of those mud, drippy kind of castles right in the surf. And she built her perfect castle. So the day wore on, and later in the day, what happened? The tide. Yeah, the tide came in, and it washed away both the castles. So as she's sitting there, crying over the loss of her perfect castle, she looked over at her brother, who was laughing, jumping up and down on top of his castle, having the best time helping with the destruction. And she said it was an epiphany for her, because she realized that life isn't about building something perfect, because things always go away. It's about enjoying the journey. And this essay was good, not because the topic was some huge, ginormous topic, but because the essay was very thoughtful. And it told me something very important about the person. That's what made the essay good. And it's one I remember so well, I still talk about it. Okay? So, topic is important. Keep it real. All right? That's my first giant piece of advice for you guys. So we have topic. So we want to talk about approach. All right? Because approach is going to be the most important thing. We've kind of gotten to a U.S. little bit of opinion piece is not a great idea. So tell me the reasons why that's not a great idea. Yes. Yeah, it's not original, right? Yep. What else? Yes. It's not right. Exactly. It's not about you. Okay, so let's say you're going to write an essay about you. All right, and I'm going to kind of loosely try to do an essay So imagine, I'm from a small town, and my essay is something like this. I grew up in Appalachia, and I used to hate where I live, but I've learned to love it. So my next paragraph would say something to the effect of, the things that I didn't like about my hometown in Appalachia include the lack of resources within the town. We had to drive 10 miles to get to the Walmart. We had no stoplights in the town. It was a very small town. I felt like it was sheltered from the world. So, the next paragraph. When I attended Governor's School for the Humanities over the summer, I began to learn to like my town. I met a girl who spoke poor about the people from small towns in Virginia, and it made me become very defensive. And now I've learned to appreciate the natural beauty of my town. Next paragraph. In closing, initially, I really didn't like my hometown in Appalachia, but I have grown to love it for all of the right reasons. Okay, so what do you think about that? Okay, told me, didn't show me. Good, yeah. Repetitive, right? Exactly. Yes.
Sounds like your typical like 5-paragraph essay.
Details, lots of descriptiveness, right? They told me a story that communicated an idea, all right? They used descriptive language, and they put me in their head, okay? Those are all really important things, all right? Now, there are two angles that I like to see in essays. One is going to be the view from the window. All right, so I want to pretend like I am looking out of my window and seeing the scene that you're telling me in your essay. If it's a soccer field, I want to know what that field looks like. I want to know the descriptive features that are important in that scene. So I want you to paint that picture for me. But just doing that isn't sufficient. A good essay is also going to show me the view from the mirror. All right? I want you to look inward and really think about why you're communicating this to me and what it tells me about you. I want you to go that extra step and do the hard stuff like she did. She uses all the time in high school. You'll use it all the time in college as well. But it is not a format I want to see in a college essay. All right? That format would be starting with an introductory paragraph with a thesis statement, 3 supporting paragraphs, and a conclusion. Again, great format, but it's a little too blocky and formal for your college essay. You want to make your college essay more of a narrative than that will allow you to do, okay? So, that's one thing that we find when people approach their essay, that they sometimes will try to be conservative and approach it in that 5-paragraph manner. Try to stay away from it. Another problem that students will face in terms of approach is they will try to be a little too verbose in their descriptiveness. Okay? They're going to be too wordy. And again, this is kind of going back to what I was talking about before with the Blue Soup essays. They're trying to use words that they think we want to hear and that show us that they're smart. Okay? But George Orwell, he's the one who said, never use a long word when a short one will do. If there's a word you can cut out, cut it out. Okay? Wordiness is going to get you into some trouble. All right? We want to avoid being too wordy and too verbose. So let's listen to this essay, which is one that we've used before on one of our publications. Okay? Okay. From an early age, we accept death as the inevitable, but do not comprehend its actual denotation. Death is the impending future that all people must eventually grasp. In my early teens, my grandfather tragically perished. As a youth who did not identify with such a cataclysm, I was saturated with various emotions. Initially, I was grieved by the loss of a loved one and could not understand why this calamity had to befall upon my family. I always considered death to have a devastating effect, but was shocked by the emotional strain it places upon an individual. What do you think about that? A little too much? Right, that like dictionary or thesaurus? Yeah, you can kind of see that. Yep.
Well, beyond just using big words, it also really suited to the occasion and also fails to actually communicate the emotion that it's saying about.
Yeah, it kind of sucks it out of it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So say you had a terrible tragedy in your family. Say your grandfather passed away, and you came to school after the funeral, and your friend said, "Hey, how are you feeling? I'm sorry to hear about your grandfather." Would you say, I'm saturated by various emotions. I hate that this tragedy had to befall my family. Is that what you would say? Would you say that to your friends? My grandfather, I can't believe he tragically perished. Is that the language you would use in talking with your friends about it? No. It's almost funny. If you think about it, it's a sad situation. It almost makes you kind of smile. You're like, what is this guy doing? He sucked every bit of emotion out of it, and every bit of realness out of it as well, actually. So, I don't want you to take my words of, being descriptive and using, good, rich language to mean that I want you to pick up a thesaurus and change all of your language to bigger words. I don't. If you're smart, I'm going to know it. And the way you write, I'm going to see your transcript. I'm going to know it. So I want you to write about you. Again, this is my opportunity to get to know you as a person, not who you think I want to see. Okay? So watch the wordiness as you go on. All right? So let's move on. So we have our topic. We have a sense of our approach. We might have a rough outline. Now we need to start thinking about how we're going to begin our essay. All right? And this is where showing and not telling can be really important. Now again, I read a lot of essays. I read about 6,000 applications a year. So if you want to keep my attention, you probably want to avoid that 5-paragraph format, because what does that give me with a thesis statement? What does the thesis statement give me in the essay? Yep. It's like, thank you very much, there it is. I know what the whole essay is about. I could read those, beginning sentences of the paragraphs. I got it, okay? You're giving me a shortcut. You want to suck me in. And we call this hooking us. You want to hook me into that essay. And by doing that, you want to think of a beginning sentence that is a hook. A beginning few sentences, a way to make me want to keep reading. All right? You don't want to tell me your whole essay in your first 3 sentences. Because then, you've given me, a few minutes of extra time to read the next application. All right? You want to suck me into that essay. All right? So, again, we tend to refer to this as a hook, a way to kind of draw you into the essay. So I'm going to give you a few examples that I wrote. All right, this is one. The student was responding to a prompt about describe the world you come from and how the world has shaped who you are. And the student started by saying, I am the product of a science speak and a mixed metaphor. It's a good way to start. Okay, this is kind of a dramatic beginning. The second time I went under, I knew I wasn't coming back up. And it's about a student who actually got sucked into a drain pipe, telling the story of that particular story and kind of the connection with a friend. The second I went under, I knew I wasn't coming back up. I'm going to keep reading because I want to find out what happened to this student. This is a different one. student starts by saying, gravity is a gift, pulling both mass and thought back to earth. Its tug is a gentle or sometimes not so gentle reminder that we are not invincible nor untouchable. So I'm going to keep going because I'm wondering what the student's writing about. Where are we going with this? And she was actually writing about riding horses. She was an equestrian, and she was writing about falling off the horse and learning to get back up. But she starts by saying gravity is a gift, pulling both mass and thought back to earth. Kind of a creative way to begin. The student starts by saying, I am solar powered. Like a palm tree or pea plant, I photosynthesize. There is simply something about the sun that addicts me. I am solar powered. It's a nice, short, quick sentence. Okay, here's another one. Students start by saying, I never dove gracefully. I preferred to cannonball. And this isn't about swimming in a pool. It's about a student who was an Army brat and moved around a lot. And he writes about that he would just, jump into college, into his high school settings quickly, rather than, trying to take it easy because he knew he was going to be moving. So, but it was a good kind of creative way to think about beginning. Another one. Behind my house there is a gate. It is not imposing or ornate or well-maintained. It is not admired for its selfless existence or its tireless determination, and it does not often receive any thanks. But it is extraordinary nonetheless. It's talking about the gate at the back of his yard that leads into a state park where he likes to hike. But he starts it by the gate standing in his backyard. Okay, so this just gives you some sense of what we're talking about. Something that's not giving everything away, but that is drawing your reader in. So you have your paper out. I'd like you to take about 5 minutes and think about a hook, a way that you might begin your essay that would draw a reader in. And just as an alert, I'm going to ask for a few volunteers to share your few sentence beginning, okay? So I'll give you about 5 minutes to do that, and we'll keep going. Okay, 1 more minute. Okay. And I hope I'll have some volunteers too. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get moving forward. So do I have any volunteers to share your hook? Come on, guys. Be brave. Yes, great. All right, everyone listen.
This is not a book. I promise. I wouldn't do that to you guys because I think it would happen.
You'd hate to have a hook happen to you? That's pretty cool. That's good. Good. All right. Who else? Yes.
The walls were gray and saggy, like at our door. The sanctuary was supposed to be for the Christmas season instead of full of laughter. And our who was dressed supposedly as an angel, supposed to be quietly, was instead running up and down the aisle, teaching kids father from hell that I was born.
I like that. One more person, maybe? Come on, one more great person. These were great so far. Got one? No? Anyone? How about one of you guys? You got it? You got it? All right, awesome. My leader or caller, very good. Excellent, good job. Very good. All right, anyone else? All right. Okay, well, hopefully that gives you something to think about as you start beginning your essay. You want to begin in a way that's going to bring in your reader to your story. So definitely think about that as you start your essay. And it may not be the first, even though it is going to turn into your first sentence, it may not be the first thing you write. Most likely it won't be the first thing you write. As you edit and move through a few drafts, that's when you might begin to think about how you truly want to begin your essay in a way that's going to bring your reader into the story. Editing is important. If you wrote a first draft and you think it's perfect, let me just tell you, it's not. Okay? You need to edit. You need to get other people to look at your writing. Show it to your friends and your parents and your teachers. But just promise me that when you do that, you do one thing. That you say before you hand it to them that this is your essay. And you want it to sound like you. And the most important thing is to keep it in your voice. I find that a lot of essays will suffer from death by committee, where the essay starts off perhaps sounding like the student, but then after, the mom and the brother and the friend and the well-meaning uncle all look at it and put their own language into the essay, all of a sudden it doesn't really sound like anyone. So you want to make sure to keep your language, keep it in the way the way you talk, and to keep it authentic to you. Because even your parents might be very well-meaning and might give you other phraseology, other ways to say things. Try to make sure to keep it in your voice and not switch it to your parents' voice. Okay, that's very important when you're thinking about the editing process. Definitely edit, but always make sure to keep it true to yourself. Okay? So I'm going to stop there for a minute and see what questions you guys have for me. Yes. Why does it come back to kind of how my life has changed, how I have changed? They don't all do that, but normally there is a lesson that they're trying to tell us, some way that they've developed or learned something about themselves. And part of that is kind of digging in and is the process of discovery that happens in your essay. Part of it is related to the prompts. So if you look at the Common App prompts, they're leading you in that direction. Tell us about something that has taught you this or that. I loaded the prompts. I emailed the prompts to me, so let me pull it up real quick, and I'll read them to you guys in case you haven't seen them. 1 second. Okay, so the first prompt is, some students have a backstory or a story that is so central to their identity that they believe their application would be incomplete without it. If this sounds like you, then please share your story. Option 2, recount an incident or time when you experienced failure. How did it affect you, and what lessons did you learn from it? Number 3, reflect on a time when you challenged a belief or idea. What prompted you to act? 4, describe a place or environment where you are perfectly content. What do you do or experience there, and why is it meaningful to you? 5, discuss an accomplishment or event, formal or informal, that marked your transition from childhood to adulthood within your culture, community, or family. So a lot of the essays are kind of lesson-oriented. They want us to show us something about yourself, and oftentimes when you think about growth, it's going to bring it back to why did you grow? What lesson did you learn? That sort of thing. So that's kind of where that comes from. Other questions? No? Yes?
What's the lowest GPA you ever had? Why?
I don't know. That's a good question. Probably pretty darn low, but I'm not sure exactly the lowest GPA we've had apply. Generally we're not looking at GPA grades directly. We're looking more at the grades you've made, the classes you've taken, kind of in transcript format. So it's not so much your GPA, but how have you challenged yourself, how have you grown, how have you performed. What else? Yes? That's a good question. The supplemental essays give us something else. So, when you guys apply to Common App schools, a lot of them are going to ask you to fill out some additional essays. Some of them might be school-specific, asking you why you're interested in that school, and others might just be some thought-provoking questions we want you to answer. You definitely want to put the thought into those essays. There are definitely times every year where I read the supplements and I say, they just punted this one. They were not really putting a lot into it. And that tells me something about, your investment in that application, right? So you really want to put some thought in it. It's a chance, it's an opportunity to distinguish yourself in another way. We have one of our supplemental questions, and essentially for our second supplemental question, we have 5 different prompts that you can choose from. One of the prompts is, and has been for quite a while, what is your favorite word and why? And we find it's one of those that separates students a great deal. Because some students, will pick the biggest word in the dictionary or something like that, which isn't terribly thought-provoking. Others will really take that to a different level and give us something creative and different and personal. So it is a way to distinguish yourself and can matter as much as your college Common App essay for us. What else? I'm going to back up a second since there was no other hands up and say, if a school does ask you, why are you interested in that school, you want to get beyond the cliche there. You really should have some reasons why you want to go to that school. And that means you might need to take a little bit of time and do a little research on the website and, perhaps even say, I was looking at the website and there were these classes that looked kind of interesting to me, or I liked the research that I saw at this particular thing, or I really was engaged when I was touring and saw the students so active in these activities. Again, just as in your main essay you want to be descriptive, you want to be descriptive in that one as well. We want to know why you're interested. It's not going to be a huge decision maker for us, but it does point to your investment